We're recording with Jason Boland. The Stragglers aren't here, but Jason Boland is. The Texas. I was going to ask you real quick about the band name thing. Is that Wes, or did you bring that up right before we started about like the band names, and then some guys have it and then some guys don't, or some guys get rid of it?
Yeah, I was just in the Texas red dirt scene in general. A lot of guys kind of started with a band name, Cody Johnson, Casey Donahue, and then kind of dropped it as the years go by. But I feel like you've held on to it for a long time.
Yeah, I think when we started out, we wanted it just to be a band. In fact, we talked about just calling ourselves the Stragglers. And because I had started playing acoustic around a few different places, they just said, for now, we'll just go with this. And you know how life is, man. It's always, for now, we're going to go with this. And that's what it ends up being. But I always wanted it to be a band. And I always think that if you're the type of outfit that, writes most of your music or has, people from within your organization or people, so it keeps a consistent vibe of your material, and you record with most of those people, even if it's still some people kind of right outside, but you always end up working with all the same folks. I think that that creates something that we've always gone for, and just it's got us where we're going, and it always made sure it freed up the other people involved with it to have their voice, play their solos. I don't tell them what solos to play. I don't tell them what.
Oh, cool.
We go for different vibes, and everybody will kick this around a certain way, but we always approached it that everybody got to put in their 2 cents as much as we could. And, I think it always helped people live together, and it helped the songs also evolve throughout live performances. Because really, when you think about any song, go back and like stuff off of like Honky Tonk Heroes or some old Merle stuff, it's real, what we would call today sparsely produced. It was just recorded right, and everything was given its proper treatment, and it didn't take a lot for your mind to fill out the rest of it. And then fast forward to Digital A's, everybody just keeps just dumping things on everything and making it bigger and louder sonically, rather than letting the band do its work.
Yeah, very well said. I'm curious what you feel or think, or how you handle, a lot of people call you, whether it's like an ambassador of the Texas country scene or the red dirt scene, or like a living legend of it, or one of the guys that kind of like pushed it forward for the last couple of decades. Or do you take that and like think about it, or do you kind of just stay focused on like what you're doing with your music now, your next project, or do you realize the effect you've had on so many other artists that have come after you in the same area?
I realize there's effect, and I hope that it was good, because we were just the same. You're the same people that you end up inspiring. You're doing the best you can, and you hope you continue a line in folk music. We never set out to be anything more than a realistic snapshot of who we were and where we came from, and keep it original. So to us, it's always been, I don't want to say experiment, but it's like this social experiment, for lack of a better word, of us watching ourselves, because we never lost track that like rock and roll has this advantage of youth and edge and noise, and that it's always going to be coming from, and this vagueness, this open future, right? Because it comes from this place, and it's got this open future. And folk music, a lot of times it starts to get retrospective. Did you hear the tale of? And it comes from a different place, and it's hard to make it listenable and make it relevant. And you see, we're down to just talking about dirt roads and jeans and pickup trucks and every other song, and you just keep hearing them pop out, and you think, Jesus, how can they keep turning out? And they won't even try to do like classic honky tonk, and everything we do is trite and overdone. If you go back far enough, you'll find somewhere where it's already been done. It already all has. But how do you do it? You know, you do it special. You do your version. I see. Is that George back there?
That's old George right here.
Yeah, you know, that still doesn't take any power away from "Pardon Me, You Left Your Tears on the Jukebox." That says its whole thing. Everybody wants to make this. Is it pop country? Is it Americana? Is it, do I got to have, you know, like a bow tie? Wow, that just happened.
You're good.
You're good.
Plug her in.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can't stop that from happening. But everything goes into its own little box. And right now, pop country is what you hear, and Americana has got to be like vague love songs and, you know, songs about Americana and this dreamland that may or may not exist. Never really talks about anything, you know, never really talks about what folk music, and at the same time also be the loudest, goofiest band dance too. So we I think when I look back and think what we were maybe aiming for without knowing for it was always kind of what Jerry Jeff Walker was. It was never too serious, but at the same time it was, you know, as serious as we should take good time and bad time music, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then for you, kind of talking about genres and the way we kind of break up folk and or country music, how do you differentiate like red dirt music and what that is from maybe necessarily the Texas scene? Because I think they kind of get commingled together a lot. Yeah. And there is kind of a differentiation. And we had Hank and RC from Turnpike on fairly recently, and they kind of alluded to, well, it's more of a scene than it is necessarily a genre where like stylistically you can like hear a difference. Would you kind of necessarily agree with that, or how would you kind of
I think
that?
You want to hear a cynical view of it?
Sure.
Pop music always makes a backlash in an underground. There'll always be a good version, even of pop is what's sad. There's usually a good version of it, and then they just water it down and blast to market with it and do that. And there's always this underground and backlash. When we think of it now, man, like John Deere Green. I think, oh man, good old dance hall honky tonk tune. But I remember hearing it the first time and thinking, I don't know, get a little campy. You know, now I hear it and I don't think about that anymore because what I have it to compare to.
Right.
You know, and I don't, but then there was a few more. I could start just, you know, throwing
all of Garth Brooks' career.
But we know you each have a flag of like, God, is it ever going to get worse than that one? And you'll hear another one, you think, did they just say what I think they said? And to the music that I just heard it, you know, and the banjo tar instead of the banjo, and just
I mean, let's be honest real quick. The Florida Georgia Line, who we're not fans of, and we have a experience people know about on the site with them. If you go back to Cruise, when that whole like kicked off the bro country phase, whatever that was, 7 years or more.
Yeah, 20.
Go towards some of those songs after Cruise and compare it to Cruise. You're like, oh man, Cruise, that sounds. I'll listen to that. I would much rather listen to that than some of the shit that came after it. People trying to mimic that, or the Sam Hunts of the world in pop country.
Yeah, and that becomes your high point. I know.
Right. You know, it's absolutely insane.
And it's how fast we get out. Nobody's ever stopped and said,
you eat your own ass. You come out the other end.
And it never goes back to, because then what people can always do when they're trying to sell something fast and you criticize it, they can call sour grapes. They can be like, you just don't get what's going on in pop culture. I get what's going on.
Yeah.
You know, kids a bunch of stuff. And just like at a kid's menu, I love hot dogs. I love corn dogs.
Chicken
I love
tenders.
Tots. I love all that stuff. But it's an underdeveloped palate.
Yeah.
I mean, let's call it what it is. And it's very limited. And if once you were allowed to just take your finger and hit whatever you want to listen to without ever having to develop a palette. I call it the dad's records phenomenon. Like my dad had a stack of records that I didn't touch until I was initiated into that esoteric little lodge of how to deal with an LP. Otherwise, you would screw up your dad's records, and that was serious business back. Yeah. We don't even think about that anymore. And then that's why the telecommunications revolution, for what it meant for all of the arts, and especially music, you see them scrambling what to do with publicity and Spotify, how the CEO of Spotify is worth over $3 billion and he's never written a song, but do y'all stream on Spotify?
we got playlists on there.
We
understand though. We talked a lot about this though on the podcast. So go ahead. We know the sides of it.
He knows too. I saw it. I saw a meme of it, that 3 times more money than Paul McCartney. But just because you write the song doesn't mean you brought it to the market in the way that was that profitable. I don't know. I don't sell ads on there, but
can I play devil's advocate just in one sense with Spotify? Because I've heard a writer or two mention this when it comes to Garth Brooks, who refuses to put his music on Spotify or Apple or whatever. A writer was like, listen, any money I get is better than no money. So if Garth went on Spotify, I would have more money, but I don't, because he's not. It's as simple as that. Is that dumbing it down too much, or is that a reasonable? I'm not saying this guy was a writer for Garth. I'm just saying he was a person that did that kind of a explanation of it.
Our ethos was always take the music to as many people as we can without compromising how we really had to get it to you. And that's, everybody can, once you preach something, you can find where you're a hypocrite. I can go back and find I was already a hypocrite and where I fell short of that. But that was always our mission statement. Take it to as many people as we could, as long as we could take it out the way we wanted to take it and never have to. Man, we watched it every time. It's like somebody would come out with something new, and anything that's yourself would be new. And that's the key to music, is just be original. Just try to find your own voice or any form of art. And man, then they get a little success and do something else and then go sign up with somebody and they throw them in with a producer. We saw it happen to us on our little level. Just the one time we signed away a little bit of creative control. And oh, dude, we still talk about it today.
Yeah. What was that like?
I'm not answering half your questions. We're just talking in circles, but
no, this is what it's all about. Yeah. It's not an interview, just what happened there with the creative, what kind of you don't need to name names, obviously, but where did they take you?
Yeah, I can do that. There's no so much of it is just there's no reason. But some other people were paying for a record, and they waste so much money on pictures. First of all, you spend much than the price of a deli tray. You've wasted money on pictures for us at that point. But they started doing a few things like that and flying us around, and we got in there, and I just remember the point where I knew it was kind of going south, but we started sampling stuff like cutting up drums. And nothing was really live. And then some things we got recorded one way, sounded this way. And that one, because of course it wasn't us, right or wrong, all the rest of them are us on there and us in our own element of playing our instruments the way we're not just, hey, can you play banjo? Oh yeah, I sure can. Oh, well, we might have one. Oh, wait, we don't. Hang on, we'll run down to Guitar Center and grab you one. It's kind of one of those instruments that's a little more particular like that. It's just the era, and it's no fault. That's why I don't
the really business side of things,
because that happens a lot in a lot of different scenarios, and that fix it in the post mentality of the digital age, which is why we recorded Pearl Snaps tape to tape. I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
And then recorded Truck Stops immediately digital. we went from like Austin, Jimmy LaFave's studio to Denton Bowling for Soup studio. It was the new digital world. And first of all, I just thought everything sounds so thin because we were a country band. So they wouldn't just keep dumping guitars on everything. Sorry.
No worries.
We're a country band. So they wouldn't just keep dumping guitars on everything. Yeah. It was so that we start working back from this, oh my God. And each album, and then the one I'm talking about, and we keep in this digital world. And I finally talked to Shooter one time at Steamboat, and I said, would you be willing to produce an album tape to tape, old school, just mixed with our ears? He said, absolutely. I mean, didn't even balk at it. Yeah. And we did Dark and Dirty Mile, had a blast. So then Jim Ward from At the Drive-In in Sparta, I asked him the same thing about Squelch because I wanted to capture just a little edgier stuff of a bunch of stuff we've been working on and playing. We did that one tape to tape, and then we did Hard Times Relative at Yellow Dog Studios with Dave Percival, and did it tape to tape as well. So we did that for 3 more albums, and then now here we are at The Light Saw Me and back with Shooter. And this one, we didn't limit it to that. We said there's going to be enough weird stuff on this one that guys, we're just showing up and you guys record it however you want to record it.
That's awesome. Speaking of Shooter, he called this album the magnum opus of you guys. How does it, having him kind of like give you that kind of praise feel? Because this is it's a concept album for those who don't know. It's called The Light Saw Me. Bit of a alien cowboys kind of abduction, futuristic sci-fi, really, really cool. Heard it, really awesome. What does it mean to have Shooter kind of give you that blessing? Is like, no, I've done previous albums, but this is amazing.
Well, first of all, I'm gonna go look up what magnum opus means. No, it's you can imagine it's awesome that the guy has heard everything you can possibly throw from the genre at him and experience his own music. Most of us, first and foremost, are music fans. People are like, so what do you do in your spare time? It's like, I go watch bands or a pedal collection and amps and guitars. And it's like, most musicians are musicians, or at least, off into enough of the lifestyle that's gobbling up enough of their spare time, getting amps retubed or something, but for him to get what we do is just how do you always say, it's not that you need vindication, but do you refuse it either? And nice. Coming such a source that you respect, somebody that it matters, that he thinks that what we do is worth being a part of. It's totally flattering. And I'll always say this, and I mean it. Out of every person I've met ever in this entire business, and especially how far off into the business he's been his entire life, he is the most kind-hearted, honest, genuine human being on the planet. I'll stand on Andy Griffith's coffee table and steal my paper. Say that.
But where did this come from? The alien stuff I'm into big time, especially if I smoke weed. Where did this concept, where was it birthed from? Where did it kind of originate? And then how did you kind of like get that storyline, so to speak, through the track by track on the album? Because to me, that's one of the, even if I didn't know any of your music or who you were or anything, and I just saw this is a concept album by a country band, I go, I got to hear what this is. This sounds really interesting.
Well, there's Redheaded Stranger and Tougher Than Leather. We have good examples. The Confederate Tales, White Mansions, that Waylon, White Mansions, Eric Clapton. And that's a another great country concept album. It's just people have forgot, you know, to keep doing things and going for it. So in the background, I think of every band is one day we'll do a concept album.
Yeah.
Some bands really go for it. Coheed and Cambria, most of their existence is a concept and a graphic novel, support storyline, a narrative. Okay, so that's always in the background. Maybe we'll do that. But as far as once you tie off into it, you're in it. There's no more. Now you have to make sure you don't poke holes in your narrative, all of this. So I think it was The Light Saw Me, just thinking of fishing, and was watching a lot, listening to a lot of Desert Oracle at the time, who become Ken Lane is the voice of the desert from Desert Oracle Radio out of Joshua Tree. He's the narrator on the album. Watching a lot of that, and I've always been fascinated with anything that all the King's horses and all the King's men can't figure out. You know, the Phoenix Lights, the Stephenville Lights, that's a lot of people. And it's a lot of very normal people. If you go watch some of those interviews, they saw something and they don't know what it is. Always been fascinated by that. There's been a lot of that lately. And oddly enough, it was before the San Diego disclosure. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be great. Right? Yeah. So, but then at the same time, once you enter that narrative, what are you doing? Are you going to walk a listener through this whole paranormal experience? And how does that relate to them? And how does that relate to this character they're listening to? So then you enter the realm of narrative to metaphor. How much of the story am I just like telling you the story? And I guess in The Light Saw Me, I just thought, well, that'd be funny if I did a song about a guy out fishing and he ends up running from this light in the sky, maybe gets abducted. And then the terrifying nature was this riff. And then the thought of like a carny barker saying, come hear the tale of this guy and what happened to him. Because I was working on the riff of one and the song of the other. And then those two songs, I thought, oh, well, then I'm just like, and then they come after him. And then he has his soliloquy moment. What if he left in the, past and came back in the future? Well, what if we did one side of the album that way and one side in the future? And we're off to the races. And then the problems became the solutions, because I've got a lot of this, like, was that hard being constrained by that narrative and all that? And I mean, I guess the short answer is it's not. It gives you focus. Once then like, okay, we're going to tell the story.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Which
gives you that road. Yeah.
Right. Of just like all of us. Why are we here? Is consciousness real? Are we all connected? Is love real? Is it just chemicals in our brain? And the Carney Barker lays all that out. The Light Saw Me, he sees it. He runs away and tells people in town and gets back home. Tornado and the Fool, they come out and basically are hassling him. He's being persecuted for what he saw. And the tornado is the metaphor for man versus nature. And then the Here For You is like the soliloquy. It's like him alone taking it all, and what he's afraid of losing. And then Transmission Out, he gets zapped out. And if you really think about the album, it's not that trippy. Yeah. The art and telling you what it's about is trippier than listening to the album.
Yeah.
And then you hear a narrative of things about people's transformative experiences with the light. And then he's back. And then we changed out drum kits and changed a little bit of the attitudes towards songs. And he stumbles off through the future and then into Straight Home as more of his like dark wandering. And then in Restless Spirits, he sees the light, which is her being channeled through this person playing guitar. And he realizes that there is consciousness, there is connectivity, even though everything he knows is gone. And he kind of wanders off into the desert on a place to stay. And then Faux Real is like this messed up little bluegrass thing that is a faux reel.
Yeah.
And then we kind of thought of that as like the credits going off.
I should have taken an edible for this. Because it's exactly the type of thing I love, and exactly the type of thing I feel like Wes and we've talked about this a lot. Obviously, people listen, but so jaded by the industry in terms of the mainstream industry, which is why we kind of said, like, we're doing our way. We're not moving to Nashville. We don't care about it, because that amazing little speech you gave about the album, I'm just in my head laughing, thinking about if you had that same talk to people in Nashville, some of the major labels or some of the artists that couldn't write a song of their life dependent on it, or couldn't even pluck one string of a guitar. I was like, I want them to hear what a Jason Boland saying about some of these things, because I don't know, it's very, very different in a cool way, but it frustrates me that so many people who like country music, in quotes, have no idea of the type of like songwriting and the stuff that goes into it for people like yourself. It's just, for me, it's refreshing to hear like a story that like you created that narrative. You're like, I'm gonna make an album off of this. It's pretty awesome.
It was fun, and I'm glad we went for it, and glad we got what we were going for. You know that have you seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I sent Shooter this picture. You know the part where he nails the scene. Dalton, when he's Dakota, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's when you listen to it and you can stand to hear it.
Yeah.
And I'll say that's a killer album when you can stand to hear it, to me, for yourself. Because most of the time
you're done.
Oh man, as soon as we're done, it's like, where's that done? If we're calling that done, then I'm done. You know, honestly, me. Otherwise, you'd sit there and mess with them forever somehow.
Yeah, nitpick everything.
Everybody did everything they could to 100%, and when we were done, we thought we got it.
Yeah. Well, I love too how it's like, yeah, it's a story in essence of a guy getting abducted by aliens and transporting to the future. But then, like you mentioned, there's like metaphors and underlying themes of like love and loss and home and like that sense of purpose and things like that where you just kind of sit back and you're like, okay, I'm hearing a story, but I'm thinking about life. I'm learning a lesson. I'm diving into more like intentional thought about,
if you're a music fan that has a brain,
why I'm here and like what's purpose and meaning and belonging and home, and even elements of like being in a foreign land and stuff like that. And you're just like, I'm feeling like something real and tangible, and like Steve mentioned, refreshing. And I just enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, amazing album. And this will probably go up after it's out December 3rd. We're recording this on the 1st, so we're talking about it like obviously like it's out, because it's going to be out when people hear it. But I did want to go ahead, sir. Go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I said sweeping the nation. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You mentioned the Pearl Snaps. I was listening to everything. I always love to listen to an artist extra long before a podcast, even if I've listened to them a million times before. And when I was listening to the song Pearl Snaps, I almost felt like it was present, because I was hearing all these things in the song societally that's going on in society, or that's going on in the world. And you're like, oh yeah, I see this on social media. I see this. And I was like, wait, when did that song come out? And I went and looked. It's 20 years ago, right? 2001. Was that when Pearl Snap?
Yeah. It was mid PC.
And it's like you predicted the
thing is about a folk singer. Yeah, it was. I wrote it probably 97-ish.
It's wild
to
me. You called it. Yeah, exactly.
For songs, everybody always wants to know, and it's the same thing Merle Haggard went through with Okie from Muskogee and Fight Inside of Me and all those. It's like, what part of the character, and it's not important what part of the character is me and what part I really think and what part I'm being the good old boy at the end of the bar or whatever. You're just being a snapshot of what you see at any given moment. And at that point, it was a lot of this it was the very beginning of the backlash after, oh, well, whatever, never mind. And Kurt shot himself.
Oh,
that was cynical as we could get right there, just kaboom. And everybody went, all right, well, let's go listen to and do Molly and check out until 2000, you know, something. And then there was like that at the drive-in and some of that post that happened. So Pearl Snaps fell in just that snap back into some form of sentimentalism of like, come on, you know, we can have some good, I hear myself saying it now, but in the moment it was relevant, you know. Since then I've become cynical and then re-sentimental again. I've been around enough. I think we bounce between those two a lot, cynical and sentimental. And Pearl Snaps comes right on that neo-sentimental kind of, hey man, at least we still have good chili recipes. You know, just
you guys sound so good from then to now too.
The late 90s, early 2000s, you know.
But it's like a lot of artists we talk to that like they listen to some of their older stuff. They're like, like I wish I did this, or you know, there's always some weird. Yeah. I listen to that and then I listen to your current. I'm like, this is just so like seamless to me. I don't know if maybe you go, oh no, we've gotten so much better at this or that. But for me as like a fan, I listened to a song 20 years ago by you guys and I'm like, this is amazing. I don't really feel like if I listen to a song today from the new album, I'm still feeling the same thing, you know? And I think that's like a huge
testament to your
thing. I mean, for me, it's like hard to find. It's hard to find. Yeah.
Do you think the Ramones got that they were the Ramones?
In the moment. Right.
Bourdain always talks about them too in that way.
Like everybody's like, punk rock. It's like, go back and listen to the Ramones, man. They're a doo-wop band that played a little too fast and just a little too loud. Not even, I mean, probably live, but at what point, what's a band? What are you? Are you the songs? Are you this image? You're always this thing that's like this shadowing of culture or whatever you're living in, whatever you're writing about. If you're a writer, pure entertainers are a different thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who's a pure entertainer in your mind in the country music landscape? Garth Brooks.
Man, I mean, when it reaches that level, you know, and what I should say this, that doesn't mean they're not the singer-songwriter thing either.
Right.
It's just, okay.
What's the focus?
If you be on TV at 7:30 in the morning singing the Star Spangled Banner or something, you're an entertainer.
Yeah.
If you're the singer-songwriter, it's like, man, it's too early, you know, whatever. You know, it's just a different approach to it's making the entertainer makes sure the crowd is serviced. The singer-songwriter is glad they enjoy the music.
Yeah.
More so.
Well said.
Singer-songwriter's not out there doing it. And anyone says, I only do it for myself. It's like, so you only play in your bedroom?
Right.
Like, I play out. And it's like, then you play for people, whether you want to call it that or not. They happen to do, and that's awesome if you get to be appreciated in your time for what you do. But I draw those lines, and I get it why there's a time and place for everything, you know. And when people want to dance, they want dance music.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
Are there any people in the West you can ask? But I'm always so interested with people like yourself who are obviously very intellectual and have really cool ideas and great songwriting, all these things. Are there any people, if you're paying attention to a lot of, you know, forms of music, whether it's country or beyond, maybe it's mainstream country, is there anybody you pay attention to that you like? Or is there maybe like a 90s legend? We mentioned Garth or whoever that I really like. You mentioned Joe Diffie earlier with one of his biggest hits. So do you like some of that stuff, or you kind of just look at it more as like a historical moment in the genre?
As far as like the mainstream top 40 country, yeah, I look at it as historical moments, and I have nostalgia, you know, with what's going on as far as that, with what I hear in a lot of folk. And I keep using the term folk because you know what we mean, and man, we're just talking. We all talk production. Everybody's playing 12-bar blues,
yeah,
give or take, and it's, you know, where you do it. We listen to a lot of Kurt Weill around here. We listen to a lot of Brian Fallon, Gaslight Anthem. I love Queens of the Stone Age. Sunvolt. And I think Jay Farrar still puts out that Honky Tonk album that came out, I think, like, you know, now it's been almost 10 years, but that album just blew me away. I still listen to that one all the time. And then, you know, we just do a lot of blues and jazz and old music. I like to not listen to too many things that are just like complete saccharine as far as like classics and, you know, things like that, because they get stuck in my head. Never wanting to go, you know, if I'm
another song in my day stuck in the head, I can't remember.
But I typically listen to a lot of weird, moody, vague, or
I like that. I like that.
Yeah. Vague rock and
clear
country.
Your head of it.
There's not a lot of new country that.
There's not a lot of Florida Georgia line.
I wore out Sound and Fury, Sturgill's
cool album. I mean,
I wore that one out. I still do.
Yeah.
That one was for fun. That was, but you wouldn't call that a country album.
I think he went out of his way to make sure people knew, like, don't call this country, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I think my favorite thing, I think it's my favorite thing that he's done. I keep getting low battery and all kind of stuff. It was because it's like when somebody goes for something and you can tell when you're doing something for yourself, it's so much more compelling to me to listen to than somebody saying, you're going to listen to this because the beat's going to tell you or whatever. I just love
going for something when you're really good is awesome, but we've met people in the mainstream that have said, we're going to go for X insert artist. We want to sound like this. Like a younger guy said, I want to sound like this.
Yeah.
And then you're like, and you're just like, what? What? Yeah. You're not that person.
You're
not
missing
Kenny
the
Chesney.
point. Yeah.
Like you're not, even if you want to be this island beach country guy, like you're not, it's not going to work. So yeah, those are all the little things that when we met people over the years, grind our gears, so to speak, for nice language.
Well, if you're trying to do something that's not you're already behind. Like if you're chasing a trend, you're already.
Man, I lost your audio.
Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now?
I lost audio real quick.
Testing.
Hang on, I'll leave and be right back.
We can just make a note of this. We can cut it out.
What time was that?
4:20.
Do you know when it started?
No, but I'll write that 4:20, which means I think we started about 3:45. So we're probably about 40 minutes in, 35 minutes in.
It's really interesting.
There
he is. Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right. We'll cut that part out.
Yeah, I tried to plug in a battery and it picked up the mic. And then, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, we know how it goes. Trust me, we've had issues.
All right.
Well, Wes, what were you saying?
I was just saying, once you start chasing a trend, you're already behind. You're already too late. And you're probably not going to be as good as the person who first either started that or explored it in a different way. And I think that's a huge problem in Nashville right now is like Steve kind of alluded to it. I know exactly who he's talking about, but you know, somebody wanting to be like, oh, you know, I thought this was going to be a great early 2000s Kenny Chesney record. That's what I was going for. It's like, well, that's already been happened. It's already been done. And you're not Kenny Chesney. So what was the like, what did you think was going to happen? And it doesn't sell. It doesn't sell. You don't sell tickets. And it's like, oh, well, back to the drawing board. It's like, well, you have no identity as an artist. You don't know what you want to say. And best of luck to you, you know?
Yeah.
And I imagine that's not exactly the 100% opposite of how you approach stuff. So you probably don't have, but you've probably seen that in the industry.
Just win, baby, win.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, hey, if we know something works, then let's go repeat that and let's start there. You know, and it ends up being people that may not appreciate music, have a deep appreciation for it. Maybe their first appreciation is for something else, and they ended up being good at marketing, and then they end up in the music business. And
yeah.
They like music, and don't get me wrong, they enjoy what they're doing and they enjoy the music they're listening to.
Took the words out of my mouth, yeah.
But they don't, you know, they don't have any. It would be just like somebody that worked in some other industry. Anytime you move, there's a learning curve, and rather than somebody that committed just year after year, you look back and you think, oh yeah, we committed all this time to it, and you can't help but tread these waters that long and learn what you're doing. So anytime you're dealing with people that have come over from something else because they're successful in business, that's what happens. It's the sensible thing to do. It becomes like Henry Ford. You want to be able to repeat things in a cyclical manner and monetize it.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple more for you here before we go. Very curious about your thoughts on when you got the call that you're going to be on the Grand Ole Opry. Long overdue, a lot of people said. December 7th, I believe, is the date. Today's the first one we're recording, so you got about a few days here to get ready for it. Excited, nervous? Were you shocked, or were you like about time, or what was kind of the feeling of getting the call to play the Opry? Really?
You know, we always feel like we've had people to mess up that stage, but shocked and flattered. You know, it
well deserving, of course.
Means a lot. Well, I mean, who is? You know, I mean, I guess I get
you guys are.
We shocked and flattered. We'll leave it at that, and we're excited to do it, and I'm glad that they think we're worth coming out and playing.
If you see some of the people that have been up there,
all the whole underground versus mainstream aside, a lot of the people that we really look up to musically and love their music for years and years have played that stage and called that stage one of their main homes. So we're happy to go get to be a part of that lineage.
Right. The circle's still the circle, as they like. You're still going to be playing a spell, like you said, of people that you looked up to. So that's awesome.
Well, and speaking of heroes too, you have a Restless Spirit on the new album, Bob Childers' song. Was that like a nod to him, or did that just kind of fit, or was it both? Was it like more of an intentionality?
He had an old saying, borderline cosmic, and this one was borderline cosmic because we're always looking for a Childers or a Crouch or, you know, one of our influences to put on there. Childers has always been leaned upon heavily just because what he meant to us as far as inspiring us to go after what we ended up doing. And this was one of his more covered songs. And for us to have never had a recorded version of it, and for it to fit, and then for it to be the moment of our eyes were closed, but still they held the light. And that be theme of the song wrapping up through of like, is love imagination or rendered inside the mind, or consciousness projected from another place in time? You know, is it what? And then right there is that, and he goes walking off. So for that moment to be a Childers song, as he would believe he'd say, would be borderline cosmic.
Yeah, like a full circle in a sense of like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really cool. I first heard that, I just like wasn't looking at the title, but just hit play, and I was like, oh, and just your voice on it too, phenomenal. So I've had it on repeat nonstop.
Fun. Whole album, a lot of fun.
So the Lights on Me album out December 3rd. One question I did have, because of the alien stuff, you know, smoking a little joint here and there. were there psychedelics involved in writing the album? Or was it just a little bit of weed, or how did that go? Because I'm always really, really interested to hear about kind of the creative process of some artists, and what they kind of set themselves up around as far as like the room or what they're doing.
You know, I think I'm interested in a lot of forms of consciousness expansion and I'll say in direct writing of the album. No, I'm a avid cannabis advocate and consumer, but you know, and only naturals, you know, only cannabis and fungi. But I do think
those mushrooms help though.
Sometimes the fungi will help a little bit with that writer's block and a little bit of that getting a concept.
You hear that, Wes?
Moved around.
Mushrooms, the fungi. Well,
Jason,
Mav, my dog Mav came here to say hi at the end. I don't know if you see him.
Hey there.
But dude, this is awesome. The album's awesome. We love your music.
Thanks for having me.
We're gonna share the hell out of the album when it comes out, and
The Light Saw Me, out now.
Yeah, out now. We should say out now because this will go up once the album's out on the 3rd.
We appreciate y'all.